Leap of Faith podcast fans. Welcome to this week's episode with yours truly, Randy Silver. As always, what is the Leap of Faith about? It's about overcoming adversity, teaching life lessons, helping you become the best person that you can be. This week, we have my guest, RJ Grimshaw. RJ, say hi to the fans for me.
Hey, how you doing, Randy? Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here today. Today, we're going to talk about entrepreneur versus intrapreneur. RJ and I got connected on podmatch.com, which you all have heard me talk about here. And he talked about entrepreneurship. And this is something that is obviously very close that we talk about is entrepreneurship here and how you can create a silo for yourself. If that is you doing your own side hustle or you're becoming your own business owner as entrepreneur. So the term entrepreneur is very related. And if you're on YouTube, you can see us. We have a diagram of entrepreneur, person wearing a suit, versus entrepreneur, person wearing a t-shirt. So what is entrepreneur? What's the entrepreneur? How are they connected? How are they disconnected? RJ is going to be our expert today to talk all about it. RJ's background, why should we listen to him? Why does he matter? He's a CEO, president, and business coach. He has experience with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. He's founded many companies. By 22, he built $1 million company, which we're going to talk about and how you make that happen. And he's been able to help many other businesses be successful. So today we're going to talk all about entrepreneurship, what's the difference, how are they the same, so you can understand where you fall and how you can make your dreams a reality. Before we bring RJ back in, just want to say to the lot of fans out there again, thank you so much for listening and watching every week. How can you do it? Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google, Stitcher, all audio platforms, all the video platforms. Please do rate and like, subscribe at Leap of Faith Pod or myself, Randy Silver 09. Go follow us, Twitter. Thank you so much. We love helping share knowledge with you, which is what RJ is here to do with us today. So we're going to bring RJ back in. RJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Randy. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I think that was a quick overview. Before we dive into entrepreneur versus intrapreneur, again, to give the audience the value in what you're here, tell us about yourself. How did you start that company when you were 22? How you built it up? And how do you know into entrepreneur versus intrapreneur?
Yeah, and that has a lot to do with the backstory of the difference between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My father owns several successful businesses. My mom and dad actually owned a business together, they started from scratch, which was a mobile home park. And this is back in the late 60s before mobile home parks were prevalent across the country. My grandfather owned a soda distributorship. My uncle was an optician, and again, all of them own their own businesses. So at the age of 22, I was fortunate enough that my dad was my mentor. Matter of fact, hanging in my office here is his handwritten business plan from 1983 that he started, him and two partners, and they took it from a business plan written in, cursive pencil, which a lot of kids wouldn't need, or people don't even realize, verse being typed out and the handwriting you can actually read. And they took that from a concept of $50 million in revenues, and then ultimately exited that business. So I saw what it took from a hard work perspective, because it's just not chasing your dreams and passion. It's discipline and being obsessed with what you believe is right in the market you can serve. So at 22, I started a business, a bar restaurant concept, with my dad being my bank. In essence, a 22-year-old wouldn't be able to walk into an institution or raise capital. But my father allowed us, my brother and I, to really take a building that was built in the late 30s and refurbish it for over a year. So there was a lot of blood, sweat, equity built into my brother and I putting in the hard work. And then my dad was, again, our mentor. And we ran it just like a real business in terms of sales meetings weekly with the staff, promotions, advertising, making out a budget, business plan, things of that nature. And then we actually added to the facility with a small motel. And then we had 11 acres. We ultimately ended up building a campground because we were in upstate New York, which is a very rural area, and we had a lot of fishermen. And then back to the trailer park that my parents started, we were actually by a nuclear plant. So you had a lot of transient workers that were coming through the area that would do what the shutdowns where they shut down the plant. So I always knew I would be a business owner. which was interesting. I started that path, and then ultimately I ended up in corporate America. And when I ended up in corporate America, I didn't know this. I was just doing it by accident. And that's why I'm so passionate about now educating people that are doing this within their organization of being an entrepreneur, because I took the mindset and qualities of an entrepreneur, or excuse me, of an entrepreneur, and utilized it within corporate America. I thought differently. I did things differently. And the other part of this message is for business owners to identify their entrepreneurs within their organization. And if they're able to identify those folks, which is really easy to identify, I guarantee every single one of us have within our organization someone that we could tag as an entrepreneur, and they don't realize it, but the value that they bring to the organization and the level of engagement and discretionary effort that an entrepreneur puts into a company is second to none. I firmly believe that every great entrepreneur needs a great entrepreneur to drive their success. Entrepreneurs are the dreamers. Entrepreneurs are the doers.
So I think that's a good segue there for me to change the screen really quick so we can keep going.
Yeah.
I just changed the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're on audio, you can't see it. I have a entrepreneur versus entrepreneur diagram here. So entrepreneur, some of the stuff we talk about, start from scratch, when RJ's gonna go into it. Growth curve, high risk, stake everything in one card. You have the freedom to maneuver, full control of the project, business ownership, commitment. And their entrepreneur, we have structure, resources, financing, accelerated stage, controlled risk, multiple opportunities. And some of the stuff that they don't have is freedom to maneuver, full control of the project, commitment, or business ownership. So we can see here that entrepreneur, definitely more of that free solo mindset. And entrepreneur is more of a rigid, give me a task, I'll get it done for you. So RJ, now back to you. Let's talk about the pros and cons of both.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, a lot of those terms on both sides can really be intermingled, because there is risk on both sides and things of that nature. But the entrepreneur, the big one, is most people don't realize that they're actually an entrepreneur. And one of the things that they actually bring up a lot of times, Randy, is when you say, well, you're an entrepreneur, and they'll say, well, I don't take risk. Well, you are taking risk because you actually are leaning into situations within the company. And I would also say that most entrepreneurs aren't very structured. And what I mean by that is that their brain is always thinking on how to improve things, how to innovate, asking why. And a lot of times in larger organizations, they actually drive in other team members crazy, because they're always looking for ways to improve things. They're always looking, they're life learners. That's one of the attributes of identifying an entrepreneur. They're a life learner. They listen to podcasts like this. They're always constantly reading. They're always looking for ways to improve things. And that, just on those merits alone, when you can identify someone like that within your organization, you're going to get, again, discretionary effort and engagement for someone that's always looking to really have the entrepreneur's back and help them grow the company. Think about it. What if someone that was an entrepreneur back when Sony came to Blockbuster to try Netflix went to Blockbuster to try and sell their company, and Blockbuster wanted nothing to do with it? Well, you needed a different mindset, a different thought process. A lot of larger companies, and again, I focus more on the small to medium-sized businesses, but a lot of larger companies have what they call entrepreneur incubators, where they'll set a team up to go off and try and come up with a new product or new revenue streams. My philosophy is a little bit different. The entrepreneurs within what I like to coach and teach, and the culture that we build out in organizations that we built out at Unify, is really more of a mindset. You can't have an organization full of entrepreneurs, just like you can't have an organization full of entrepreneurs. It doesn't work. You need people in certain roles. So, for example, our company is approximately 13 people, which is a small company, and we did $100 million in sales last year. However, a handful of those folks are entrepreneur, and we fully embrace the culture of always looking at things to improve them, always looking for processes, always looking for improvements in procedures, always looking for additional revenue ideas. And when you start cultivating that mindset and culture within the organization, you only need a handful of people to think like that. And you're going to see a significant difference, especially during COVID, where
Yeah.
so many the worlds were turned upside down. You needed people proactively thinking, okay, this is how we're going to overcome this. Okay, this is how we're going to overcome that. Where if you don't have that type of mindset, and we've seen this, unfortunately, so many companies just crater because they couldn't pivot or change. And entrepreneurs are the ones that drove that change.
And it's probably because entrepreneur has their vision and it's the one way that they've only seen it. So how can now out of nowhere can I pivot and not have the same vision? You need someone to come in and have a fresh pair of eyes.
You need someone with a fresh set of eyes, but you also have to have someone that you have trust and faith in. So that's why it's so important, where we already had this type of culture in place. So it was easy for us to pivot because I had trust and faith in the people who were pivoting and driving that pivot. The other key ingredient, and this is very, very important, for an entrepreneur, and it doesn't matter what company they're within, but if their beliefs do not align with the company's beliefs, it will not work. And what I mean by that, and it's not the vision statement or the mission statement. However, it's more so understanding the why of what the company does. An example of that is Unify. We focus on helping small to medium-sized businesses finance the equipment that they need to either grow revenues or become more efficient. Now, if that doesn't resonate with someone, which it resonates with everyone that's here, if it doesn't resonate with someone or they don't like working with businesses, then we're probably not a good fit for them. So that's one of the interviewing processes that we go through. The other thing, Randy, and we're very fortunate and blessed, is during the great resignation that's taken place now, right? We haven't lost any employees.
Oh, wow. That's great.
They I hope I didn't jinx ourselves with that.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But it's because, again, the culture that's built is very transparent. The culture that's built is that they own, they own their jobs. As a matter of fact, when we interview folks, and we're not a big company where it's rigid job descriptions and grades and things of that nature, we actually tell candidates when they interview with us, or our management team does, that if the job description is identically the same today, or in 12 months that it is today, we haven't done our job as an organization, and most likely you haven't done your job as a team member, because there's so many things that you can add to job descriptions. There's so many things that, from an ownership mentality, and that's one of the other attributes of an entrepreneur. You have to have that type of mentality.
So then, because we actually did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about interviewing well, and the types of questions asked from the interviewer side and the interviewer side. How do you, in the interview process, see if someone's an entrepreneur? What are the types of questions, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, so great question. One thing that we do, we actually list in our job descriptions now, in terms of if we are hiring, which we are, because of our growth, we actually put in there that we want someone to be an entrepreneur. And what that has done for us, it's actually it's the level of people that are applying to certain jobs within our organization. We've seen the skill set increase or improve tremendously, because once again, they're self-discovering what an entrepreneur is, and they read the definition of an entrepreneur, of someone that has an entrepreneur mindset working within a corporate environment. So as everything's on this side of the screen, I guess, shows you structure, resources, things of that nature, someone can come in, which we have had, and really do a great job and help their own career. Because think about this, they're going to learn things that they're taking the time to learn, that they're going to be able to leverage down the road in terms of new findings. And an example of that is, we had a gentleman who was in our sales department 5 years ago come to me and say, I really firmly believe that we need an online payment portal, or a pay portal. And back to trust, I didn't think that was important, but it was so important to this particular gentleman. I said, if you want to take and run with it, go for it. But you're also going to have to maintain your sales objectives, and it can't become a distraction. And I don't want to hear from your manager down the road that, hey, you're missing on numbers or missing on things of that nature, because that revenue is our oxygen. Well, he took and ran with it. He brought together our IT team. He brought together the outside provider, and he he did it on his time and made a run. And now we process close to $100,000 a month through that portal that we didn't have to go out and leverage outside resources to do that. And that was not in his job description. He just knew it was the right thing to do. And he saw it and he went and took the time. So to answer your question specifically on interview questions, one question that I ask, which is my go-to always, and it's always the last question I ask. And I've had people that I've asked this question that I thought during the interview process wasn't going to be a good fit, and they've answered it and we've hired them. And I've also had people that we go through this interview and I think we're going to hire them. I ask this question and we end up not hiring them.
Interesting. Okay. You got me peaked. I'm sure you got the audience peaked too.
Yeah. And it's not, believe me, it's nothing that you're going to say, oh, that's the only question. Geez, that's it, RJ. That's the question. I ask a question. What would be your dream job if money was not an issue? And I'll always, my next sentence is, and don't give me the token answer that you believe RJ wants to hear. And I say, my dream job is I would be the head coach for Michigan football. Excuse me, or head coach of any sports team. I love coaching. I just love strategy, motivation, game plans, anything of that nature. And that would be my dream job. If that would be a great path for me. I've had people that have started crying when I've asked that question because it hits, it resonates with them. And maybe it has something to do with a family member that had cancer or a health issue and they would want to start a foundation to do something like that. The gentleman that I wasn't going to hire, we didn't think we were going to hire, answered the question that he would like. We were interviewing for a credit analyst position within our company. And a credit analyst, you sit in front of monitors all day and you're looking at data and you are making an educated decision looking out either 3, 4, 5 years if this customer is going to repay us back for the debt that we're allowing them to take on. And we don't do anything with financials. Everything is credit scoring and things of that nature. He answered this question saying in his spare time and what his true passion is trading foreign currency.
Interesting.
And as soon as he answered that, I said, he needs to join. We need to hire this gentleman because he is already analyzing data on a frequent basis, looking at monitors all day and making good, quick decisions. Because in our world, we can't have someone look at something and just spin their tires for hours and hours and hours. Either it hits the marks and it makes sense and you critically think and we approve it, or it doesn't and we decline it. So that's just one example. And that really is, but during the interview process also, you know, you ask questions and you start to get an understanding. What do they do in their spare time? I love life learners. If someone says, you know, if we get in a good conversation, I'll ask, what's the last good book you read? If someone says I don't read, to me, that's, you know,
it's a tough answer for you.
Yeah, they're going to have to overcome that. And I also love athletes. I love team athletes. It doesn't matter what role they played or what sport they played, but they understand typically if they're an athlete. And I don't even need high level. I don't, you know, if they played in college or grew up and played athletics, that means they understand teamwork, discipline, the you know, where we're headed and things of that nature. But that one question really, really helps me a lot. And also, at the end of the day, if we do hire them, it really gives me great insight into who they are. And that's most important to understand what really drives them, because that's their passion. And I'm not a sport, so everyone thinks, oh, you're a sports guy. I'm not really a sports junkie. I love sports, but I don't sit on, you know, on the couch all day Sunday. And when I go to a sporting event, my family makes fun of me. I actually enjoy watching the coaches interact with the players and interact with the other coaches more than I do like in watching the sporting event itself. But again, I just am a student of the game and student of coaching.
And I feel that because like yesterday we saw Sean McVay hugging all his Ram players after they just won. And you can feel that he, as a leader, they have his back, he has their back, and they're a family. And when you can cultivate that environment, you're going to get the best out of the player. You're going to get the best people at your work, which is then taking us to our next background, which is what we have here, which is talking about entrepreneur, and what characters overlap. And we have an overlapping chart of leadership, adaptability, innovation, persistence, which is actually everything RJ just talked about. And these are the type of stuff that when I interview, as well as I talked about last week, I try to find people, as RJ has said, probably the sports background, because they understand how to be in the team. They understand the competitive nature to be successful. But also I want to find someone who has a side hustle, an outside hobby, because it means that they're always grinding and thinking and looking at a different way to get something better, or like they're not going to be focusing on work 24/7 because they need to have a work-life balance. So
Mhm.
RJ, the 4 skills here: leadership, adaptability, innovation, persistence. You agree, disagree? Feel like we're missing anything here?
No, I agree with all of those, and those are big words which have big meanings. You can mean different things to different people.
Buzzwords.
Yeah, they're your typical buzzwords, but it's really those are good ones. But really, the other one that's probably missing, well, persistence. You have that there because typically an entrepreneur, they have to be persistent because again, it doesn't typically fall within their core job description. So they are looking and doing things that are going to benefit the company long term. And they're going to probably ruffle some feathers because they're asking those questions and trying to make improvements. And let's be honest, unfortunately, today, 70% of folks, and I don't know what the current stat is, but if you look at the Great Resignation, are I call them seat warmers. They just show up, they do the bare minimum. It's not in their job. They're going to take every PTO day. They're going to take, all their discretionary time off. And again, some organizations, I understand why people do that. I just don't want to run a company that people have to think like that, where I'm going to take every single minute off that I can. I have people that come in on, we're fortunate and blessed enough to have people believe in the mission, believe in what we're doing, and will come in and pick up hours and things of that nature. And it's not because we're asking them to; they want to. They believe and buy into what we're doing.
So how are you cultivating that culture of entrepreneurship besides the interview process? What are you doing, say, on a daily basis of helping people have that mindset to want to think like that?
It really starts at the top of the house, and I don't care if you're a one-person shop or a two-person shop or a three-person shop or a 100-person shop, but the culture and bigger and more large organizations are really starting to buy into this because it does so many beneficial things to the organization. And right now what it really does is it help with engagement from team members or employees. But it starts at the top, and at the top, and it doesn't matter if you're at the top of your division, your unit, if you're the the CEO, the founder, whatever group you're in charge of, it starts with you. And it really doesn't take a lot of work other than, and this is where we do come in, because people will say, oh, it must be so difficult, things of that nature. And we just walk them through a series of things that we've really rolled out the plan for them and how to do it. And it's not a lot of work other than they have to buy in. And buying in is simply just talking about it, educating the team, trying to identify your entrepreneurs. Again, you're not looking for 75 or 80% of people. You're looking for 10, 15%. So it's not a lot of people. And if you find one, that's wonderful as well. And then you start that conversation. Then what you're going to have happen as 2 or 3 people buy in and start doing this, and you're talking about it during town halls and things of that nature, and then you're going to see other ideas pop up. And the other ideas can resonate around product improvements, processing improvements, go to market strategy for sales, go to market strategy to take or friction, to take friction out of the system, really breaking things down. And you start seeing people doing this on their own. And as a leader of the group, when you start seeing that take place, okay, we need to keep moving this forward because it's really gaining momentum. And you see, again, back to discretionary effort, there's proven stats that when you have a culture of entrepreneurship, this discretionary effort goes up close to 35%, which you're not doing anything special to get that discretionary effort up, because you have people that want to be part of the organization
and go above and beyond. So would you ever offer somebody some type of cash incentive bonus if they're able to achieve whatever the entrepreneur mindset they're going for?
So we don't do that today, but what I love to develop is I'm working on with a couple developers right now, more of a platform because of the level of gamification now, right? And dopamine effects and things of that nature, where you're able to start tracking these different initiatives and then rewarding people. And I'm not so sure to an entrepreneur, the monetary piece is important, but what's more important to an entrepreneur is that the effect that you're having on the business and your voice is being heard and you're not being pushed down. And we use that as a selling point as we're interviewing people, that here's an organization that your voice will be heard because we believe in an entrepreneur mindset. And it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not, but your voice is going to be heard. And so many people go into organizations now and they feel beat down and their voice isn't heard and they're not happy and they're going to go through bare minimum just to do the job and then have the side hustle, which I'm a huge fan of side hustles. I think that if you don't have a side hustle, just from an education perspective, learning about something, shame on you, you know, and because even if it doesn't turn into where it becomes a success or from a monetary perspective, a success, your knowledge base that you've improved on, now it makes you a better rounded person. And you'll be shocked all of a sudden you're talking with someone about something. And, geez, I tried to open a business or I did a business like that. And now you have common ground. So
I agree with that. When I tell people about this podcast, because like this is my side hustle, it instantly just creates so much more conversations. I get people who want to come on, they're like, I have a message to share. I love that you use your platform to go with it. And they just instantly connect. And if people wanted to find you to get more information about how you can help them, how would they be able to do that?
You could Google RJ Grimshaw, or you can go to rjgrimshaw.com is our website. You'll see Able Leadership across, and that's just a platform that we're starting to build out for this in terms of the gamification piece. Now, I will say one, and I have to bring this up. One of the challenges with an entrepreneur mindset, and when you really get a unicorn that this gentleman was, he was an attorney, he was a CPA, he was a sales professional. I mean, just one of those guys that just takes life by the horns and just makes the best of it. A lot of times an entrepreneur, because they're built the way that they are, you might only get them for a couple of years and then they move on, because they
get restless.
Yes, they're restless. Exactly. So that is one of the true downsides. But again, I'm full disclosure, I bring that up. However, though, the return on the improvements that they've made or products that they've made or enhancements they've made, you're going to see for the rest of the business that time in terms of being established. So more power for them if they make that decision to leave. And I'm dealing with that right now, quite honestly, with another one of our all-stars that they want more. And I help them too. We have candid conversations. Well, let's get you to where you want to go, but we also have to figure out how we're going to backfill. But if you want something bigger or more people to manage, we have limitations, for that. So let's get the roadmap for you to get there, which is different too, because everyone else is fearful and, oh, they're going to leave me. What's wrong with me? It's like, I always say, and it probably drives my team nuts, you get one go around here. Have fun doing it. I'm not saying every day you're going to come into Unify skipping and whistle and excited to be here, but at the same day, at the same respect, 80% of the time you should enjoy what you're doing. We all have stress, and empathy was a big focus of ours over the last couple of years with COVID, of really just trying to understand everyone's different situations, and with kids being homeschooled and parents and just our world being turned upside down, and just really trying to understand the other person was a real big, and it continues to be now.
I completely agree with that, about just having empathy and trying to be there for the workers, especially when you're doing it virtually. How do you know what someone's going through when you're not sitting next to them every day and maybe get to see the emotions? You're only on a Zoom day in the day in. So when I do leadership, I try my best to always know that person first, business second. And if they know I'm there for them, they'll be transparent, open with me. And when they need that break, they can take that break. When they need help, they need the help. But then they'll also work harder because they understand that you're out there for their best interest, not just seeing them as a number. And RJ took the leap of faith of being here on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here, RJ. I appreciate it. Just as a quick recap, today we talked about entrepreneur versus intrapreneur, how you can have entrepreneurs inside your organization like RJ does to be able to be successful, help find new ways to be innovative in your company, find new processes to make sure that you always are innovating. You don't get stagnant, let the competition beat you, or you need to pivot in different ways. You need to pivot when things like COVID or other circumstances happen. RJ, any final last words?
No, I think you captured everything, and I really enjoyed my time here talking about this topic as well as other things too.
Awesome. And just one last reminder for people, if they want to find you, how can they find you? Everything will be in the bio.
rjgrimshaw.com. I'm on Twitter, RJG Coach. I'm all over. So I love social media. I was an early adopter way back when, but yeah, it's easy to find me. rjgrimshaw.com.
Awesome. RJ, thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and do the sign off. Leap of Faith fans, thank you for listening and watching this week. So RJ, repeat after me. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy.
Stay wealthy.
Stay wealthy.
And have a good week, fans.
Have a good week, fans.
Deuces.
Deuces.